This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. One of the things that I've definitely been super obsessed with over the years is trying to play fast. And I think any video like this should really be started with a disclaimer that I never needed to play faster to get any of the gigs that I've got, and probably would have got more if I'd focused on other things. So that's important to say, but you know, just before getting too far down this rabbit hole, you know, are there other things that you could be working on other than speed? But in this video, I kind of wanted to discuss some of the things that I think might be slowing folks down in general, and what we can try to do to mitigate this. And this is bearing in mind that recently I've been doing some different things and thinking about things in a slightly different way, and I had a bit of a revelation based on Spiro and Anton Aparin, but some other kind of general thoughts. So first of all, one of the key things is that most people playing anything particularly fast are putting more than one note on one string. Now of course there's also sweep picking, but in general string changes are the things that are going to slow someone down more than anything else. I think that's fair to say, right? And for that reason, some things like legato might actually be a really good starting point instead of you know, some wild sweep picking thing or some wild alternate picking thing. I think in some ways legato can be a bit of a quicker way to sheer speed. It certainly was for me as a kid. And then the alternate picking thing might be a bit more of an option, but there are, you know, aesthetic reasons that you might prefer one or the other. But if you're looking for sheer speed, I would say legato might be your best bet. And think about how can you get three notes on every string. Now, if you're not able to visualize this stuff, then that is going to particularly be a blocker to any speed. So that is a thing that I would practice. All of your three note per string. In every position, with the point being here really that if you can't see your scale quickly, you can't play your scale quickly. Does that make sense? I think that's true, unless you've got a thing which is super muscle memory, in which case, you know, maybe you can just not worry about it. But if you're improvising or, you know, joining together phrases that you know, then you're going to need to be able to visualize your scale all over the neck, and in this is the sort of thing that you should be, I think, working on if you're particularly interested in the legato stuff. And that's kind of the secret to longer legato lines in general, is that most of these people able to do that are able to see a few boxes at a time, or a few scales at a time, or, you know, a few sections of the scale at a time, and move. I think that's a bit of a precursor to playing fast, right? Especially legato based stuff. And equally, like I say, try and do this kind of thing on the same string and see where you can get with that. You could try muting a little bit as well. Okay, another thing to bear in mind is that we're probably, most of us, I remember Rick Graham talking about this as the first time that I'd seen this talked about, playing with too much tension potentially, and this is also where I want to go with this in terms of the alternate picking thing. So efficiency, economy, all of these things and fluid technique, I kind of think of as this is maybe more where we should be focusing. I did do a video talking about this idea that you could probably force your playing, even if you're playing with, you know, suboptimal technique, like, so I have a tendency to elbow pick, and even if you're spamming like that, you can continue to push beyond, you know, to a certain extent, but it doesn't necessarily keep you all that accurate. And so that is encouraging me to play with actually quite a lot of tension built up, which is something that I definitely need to do less of. So one of the things that I will try to think about is this Rick Graham thing, which I try to recalibrate every now and then, is like how much tension is actually needed in the left hand to sound a note. And you could even try this to the extent, you know, go between fretting notes and just dancing over the fretboard and see what happens. And see where the notes are, how much tension is actually needed. And see how much you can release. Because those really flowing legato lines have less tension in general. I've had about 2 hours sleep, by the way, so if this is shocking, I do apologise. So less tension in the left hand, so test this by, you know, just ease off a note and see how much is actually needed to fret it, and try and get that feeling into your fingers. Now, some of this next part is going to be a bit difficult to visualize, but the idea is that you want to maybe make smaller movements rather than faster movements. And my tendency is to sort of get a bit flappier the faster I'm trying to go, and try and sort of momentum my way into it. But bearing in mind all that we've just said, what I'm really focusing on here instead is trying to make smaller movements and that pinky is really not wanting to do anything smaller. You see what I mean? Instead of it being a bigger, what about if we can try and make it smaller movement than the left hand. Now here's the real key one for me, which is that with picking, when I'm practicing slow, I try to exaggerate the movements. Which is pretty much exactly the opposite of what I think I should have been practicing for about 3 decades. So what I think, based on Anton Apparin and Spiro, who are some really efficient pickers, instead, and this is really the key to it, what Spiro talked about was that you imagine a ball is bouncing between 2 surfaces. To make that ball accelerate, you could either, throw it with more force, or you could move the walls closer together, and you'll kind of move in the parameters of what's, lower and higher, smaller together, and that ball is going to necessarily be quicker as you bring those in. And with that in mind, when we're practicing any picking idea, instead of this sheer focus on speed, focus on how small can we make these right hand movements not moving the elbow anymore. Okay, and one other thing to really focus on with this is your picking actually comfortable with the various things that need to happen for like solid alternate picking? So you've got like pick angle, which most people tend to do a bit of downward pick slanting or at least 45-degree angle stuff. In order to get the string skipping happening. But here, what I'm really being conscious of as I'm trying to increase the speed is just kind of staying in a smaller box, right? And then what you could do, and that's keeping me from going into this spasm kind of thinking and keeping them more relaxed. Small. I'm still a long way to go on this journey. Then, because if we rearrange this like so instead of 9, 11, 12, 10, we go like this, we can get a completely different picking pattern, and this can really help us to have a bit more of a versatile right hand. So 9, 7, 8, 10, 8, 7. Smaller, not faster. You can see that that's going to be down, up, going outside the string for those first 2 notes, versus down, up, down, and out. So this really succinct exercise is going to be practicing string skipping of both varieties, so outside, inside. I think. And then what we could also do is start with an upstroke. And then this is really going to test our combinations. And remember, not fast, small. Like that. And then same if we start on this version, when you get an up, down, which would give you inside picking, right? Inside, like string skipping. And if you can do all these things, and do them kind of cleanly, I think you'll be on your way to a slightly faster technique. And then, yeah, like I said, this is like a really, really focused picking exercise. Starting on a down, start on an up. And just notice what is hard about that and try and hone in on that feeling. Small movements, not fast. And then flip it around for this one. Starting on a down, now starting on an up. And with all of this stuff, again, focus less on speed, more on efficiency, and hopefully speed comes along for the ride. Staying relaxed. It's less easy for me to do that if I sort of tense up and start with an upstroke. Like, I don't really have the control anymore. If I stay relaxed, those are some things that I think we should be thinking about a bit more. Like, A, how many notes have you got on that string? How much tension is in your left hand? How much tension is in your right hand? And can we make all of the movements like that a little bit smaller and practice on that being like the key focus of our efforts when it comes to this speed stuff, instead of like just pushing through like I was doing, where it's like I could make like 30% gains in a few weeks, but not with much control. Whereas if I, instead of just doing that, just focus, right, how small can I make this movement? Is there some wasted effort in this left hand? And focus on that instead. And like today, I'm, for some reason, wanted to try and play an Allen Holdsworth lick, and it's doing this kind of thing. Yeah, try and make all of the little movements more efficient, you know, less pressure. You might find some of these things a bit easier. I don't know. It's always going to be a challenge. Like, playing fast is hard. Big, wide, stretchy stuff is hard, especially on no sleep. But those are some things that I think might help some people. hopefully. If you want to check out those picking exercises that I've started working on, I'll put up a tab for you guys. Yeah, I hope you're having a good week so far. And yeah, if you've got any tips for other folks to read in the comments, please feel free to point them to stuff that you found helpful, or Paul Gilbert, all that sort of stuff. Cheers for stopping by.